In this video, I'm going to cover how I decided that I was going to start improving my writing and start increasing the amount of times that I take up speaking opportunities and how those two things work together, what resources I use to practice both skills, and what I have learned so far. This began because I became fascinated with seeing how people were sharing their lives, and I know what impact these people have had on my life when I take what they say and take action. I am someone who likes to heavily research things online in depth. I go down rabbit holes into the depths of various topics that I am interested in. I have gained a significant amount of knowledge on random topics. I started thinking that I could start sharing that information in a way that would save someone time where they don't have to go and spend hours on Google, ChatGPT, Reddit, Twitter to try and find information. If I can find a way to be able to articulate those things in a video format, since that seems to be the trajectory of how things are going and the direction of content that a lot of people enjoy, I figured maybe I should create content. When I got this idea that I wanted to start creating content, I did not realize that there would be so many hurdles for me mentally to even create content, and the friction that I experienced with first just being afraid of speaking on camera. It seems like you're talking in front of a bunch of strangers, even though I'm just talking to my phone. So there was that cringe mountain hurdle that I am still getting over. If I want to be taken seriously, and if I want people to understand the points that I'm trying to make in this content that I'm anticipating making, I'm going to have to improve my speaking. And that's when I realized that to improve your speaking, aside from consuming content on how to become a great speaker, good speakers say that you need to improve your writing skills. As you begin to gain clarity from writing frequently, you can think with more clarity. And if you think with more clarity, you can speak with more clarity. One of my biggest things that I've struggled with when I try and speak, especially in front of people, is that I feel like my brain is moving so much faster than my mouth can process words, or I don't feel like I can explain things well without getting flustered, nervous. My face gets red when I'm speaking in front of a crowd, even if I don't feel nervous. It's like from years of being primed as a shy person or something. Something that has been very, very beneficial, and I recommend it to all of my friends and family, is the Libby app. This is not an ad or anything like that, but I could be a salesperson for them at this point because I've told so many people about this app. But it's literally attached to a library card. So if you have a library card, you can type in the number and you can access this it's a whole digital library. So you can transfer over to your Kindle, or you can listen to audiobooks. Probably listened to 200 to 300 in the last 2 years of having the app, and I just love it. It's free because it's treated as a library book. How I like to consume content is by listening to audiobooks. I find that I learn a lot that way. It has to be consciously taking in this information and letting there be time to process it at the end of it, because I did realize there was a time period last year where I was getting through so many audiobooks and podcasts and just consuming, but it probably turned out to be a waste of time because I didn't take the time before or after to prepare my mind for absorbing the information. A lot of times while I am cleaning in the house, while I am cooking, while I am driving, on walks with my dogs, that's when I'm listening to audiobooks or podcasts. So of course you can't have a notebook and write. I think voice notes are great for that. I would just recommend writing the points in the sentences and the phrases, even if it's 2 paragraphs worth, whatever. that stand out the most to you, and then you have that information that you can let your brain process more later, and you could think about it if you want to get deep into it, or you could just never return to it, whatever you want to do. I just think that while it's fresh, you have to put a stop to the intake at some point and pause, take notes, review, think about how these things made you feel, think about, do you want to take any action because of this, and really let it process. Because during that couple of month time span that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, it's like I was just listening to a bunch of things, not applying any of it, and time just kept going on. If you just have it in the background and you're not actually trying to do anything with the information, then I feel like your time can be better spent elsewhere. I'm reading this one book right now that is specifically on writing content and structure, and that one is almost like a workbook where after every chapter you kind of have to practice so you can see if there's any result. Not every book is like that, but some are just good to process and think about what you want to do with that information before moving on to the next thing, because our brains can only take in so much information, and you want to maximize what you're actually using that information for. Another thing that I have done that is probably the most intimidating thing so far is that I do have opportunities through my job to speak in meetings. I have opportunities for certain events and conferences and things like that. But it always makes me super nervous. I don't know why. It's like once the attention is on me, I never feel like I know enough to be the one presenting. I always feel like someone must know more, and I think that almost prevents me from diving into something deeper, because it's like putting brakes and seeing an imaginary animal run across the road. And I might be the most knowledgeable person, or maybe there are people that know more than me in the room. It's like an anxiety of some sort that just prevented me from being able to speak confidently. So I think it might be a confidence thing as well. But with that being said, I looked up if there was any public speaking opportunities, and I did end up going to one that was very beneficial. There is more coming up in the near future, so part of me is still nervous about doing that, because we did have to speak very briefly for a portion of it, but we learned so many tips. So I would recommend that. I think that these are just things that get better with practice. So for whatever goal you're working toward, I think that as you continue showing up and practice speaking and learning little tips here and there and actually practicing them, you can't just watch a video on it and it'll magically be your life. You can't just write about it once and it'll be your life. It'll be a while before you start to see the results, but it'll incrementally get better each time, because you start retaining the information that you're taking in with practice. Similar to going to the gym, I am trying to make it a habit to write for at least an hour, if not more, a day, because that's one of my main goals. So if it's one of my main goals, it's something that I'm going to do every day. And the reason for even caring about this is voices are so powerful. And the people that I remember most from history and in my life are great speakers, and people are more willing to listen to somebody if they can speak well and articulate their thoughts and get their point across. I want to be one of those people. I want to be someone that people trust their opinion, because they not only just sound like they know what they're talking about, but I want to emulate the feeling of trust, and I want to have passion. I want to make other people's lives better, and I feel like by making mine better, I can make others better, because I can share my experiences, and others may be struggling with similar things as me or trying to accomplish similar goals, but I might be at the next step. I have learned from people that are steps beyond me. I don't feel like it's a duty necessarily to give back in that way, where I have to produce content and you don't have to produce videos to share your thoughts. There's definitely other mediums that you can use, but I do feel like with everything that I have consumed over the years, I have a lot of things that I could share, and maybe with that there can be some sort of mutual benefit of finding people that are in similar interests and goals and circles. I've been trying to get to the bottom of why I think that I was labeled, like self-labeled, and also labeled as a young kid as being quiet and shy. I am described as soft-spoken, but if somebody really gets to know me, then I'm not at all. I can be loud and I can be very extroverted, but it takes a very, very deep level of connection before I get to that point. I think that learning to speak better has sparked some of these deeper thoughts of wondering the origin of the quiet and how I got to be this way. I feel like it probably limited me in certain ways when I was younger, but I just want to break that chain. It takes one person chipping away at these things that are flaws and that prevent you from maximizing who you are as a person and your impact on the world. I think it can just be one person that shares the information that they learn by going through the process themselves. The impact is larger than yourself. The impact is changing personality traits, potentially, for generations within your family. When I was a kid, and my brother and I, we have been told that we were both very quiet growing up. We were both shy kids, very quiet. Now that I'm older, I can see that my mom is a more reserved, soft-spoken person. So it's easy and fair to say that that trait got carried down from her. And apparently my grandpa, which was my mom's dad, was also a reserved person. Can that be shifted? I don't know the science behind this, but I want to change that, because what I feel before I go in front of a room of people, I feel very anxious. And I've been told that I don't show it. I could still execute a presentation, but on the inside, I feel frazzled. I feel like I'm not getting sentences out correctly. Everything that you would use to describe relaxed, I feel the opposite of that. Even if it appears on the outside like everything is okay. Big supporter of the fake it till you make it, but for me, in my own personal growth, I want to get over that. And I think maybe it'll be practice, but to be determined. One thing that I would recommend to people who are trying to get into writing, because it's very simple. There's something special and magical about going in on either a blank piece of paper or a Google Doc and just writing what's on your mind. Simplicity is very important. And if you start to rely too heavily on any of the language models to enhance your writing every single time, I don't think ultimately that will improve your ability to speak. And if you feel confident in your speaking, that will carry over into feeling less anxious in social situations, because you can confidently articulate your thoughts. If you feel confident in your ability to articulate your thoughts, you can feel more relaxed, and then you'll be putting off a more relaxed energy rather than seeming uptight or nervous, because you won't be, because you have practiced and got better at speaking. I listened to some of Jordon Peterson. He was a professor at the University of Toronto, and I was looking into taking a writing class. I looked at a bunch of videos and I read a bunch of forums about improving writing and joined some groups, like Facebook groups, and there's others, like Discord servers, and subreddit about writing improvement. I was like, maybe I should take some sort of structured course, because I'm willing to put in the time and dedicate to actually improving this, rather than just saying that I want it to change and just writing without any structure. So that's why I have specific books on how to improve writing. That's why I'm seeking out courses for writing. That's why I I'm seeking out specific videos and looking for public speaking events that I can practice in person. I saw when I was doing this that Julian Peterson, Jordon Peterson's son, developed this app. It's called Essay.app. It's a website that has such a clean format for writing. It's very simple, and they give you tips on how to write essays specifically. Essays are a good structure because you have a beginning, middle, and end, and it's kind of like storytelling. I think some of it is just giving yourself time to think and breathe. When you're listening to a bunch of content and it's things you haven't heard before, it has that feel-good effect, and it seems like you're learning riveting information and that you get excited about it because you're like, if I do this, then my life can really change. But as I mentioned earlier, I think it's very, very important to not get too far into these things and listen to like 10 chapters at a time without pausing and actually trying to apply some of these things. So give yourself time to think and not consume any content of any form. And maybe this happens when you're in the shower. Maybe you have to be walking around, that's fine. You don't have to be stationary when you do it, but I think it is good to sometimes shut off the constant listening, because I feel like I am constantly listening to some form of content, and it's really good for my brain to sometimes just listen to me. Thank you for watching.